Caption: TPE presents The Psychology of Adult Development. Title: Phenomenal Psychology. Beginnings.
Your rhubarbs are being cut out.
On a video call.
Well, hello and welcome to Phenomenal Psychology. Hello, Ryan. How are you?
Hey, Pablo. I'm doing good, but apparently my audio and video is not doing so great. So we'll see how this goes.
Okay, we'll struggle through. It's good to see you. Here we are at the beginning of a new semester in this course. How are you feeling?
I feel like I'm I'm in that place that
Ryan sits in his living room.
that expectation, anticipation, still want to have some more relaxing time, but lots of work to do. And it feels like, it feels like school's about to start. That same old feeling of the week before school begins, what we do and how we get prepared. How about you?
Yeah, I feel a little bit of that. I feel a little nervous, not as nervous as previous semesters. And I'm wondering if people in the class are also feeling a little bit of that too, of a new beginning and the nervousness and excitement of that, or maybe there's no excitement there, or maybe there's a possibility of excitement there. I don't know.
Well, we'll find out soon enough in a matter of days. Yeah, we've got a whole new group of people that we're going to be meeting shortly that are new to us as well and to each other. So that feels like something that's a bit of a support, I think, from semester to semester, like recognizing so many of us are coming into this space new to one another, and that brings with it a whole lot of feelings and past experiences with us. I can certainly, even like being a professor, like here we are, we've got this course that we've developed and we know what we're doing and we're arriving in the first class, but I still have this nervousness of wanting to be likable, wanting to be knowledgeable, wanting to be supportive and attentive, and all these things that are important to me. And so I'm feeling a sense of pressure on myself to keep aware of all of those things and still arrive and be me and be genuine and be funny and all that stuff. Feels like a tall order right now when I'm feeling the tension before class begins.
Okay, let me ask you something then. A couple of semesters ago when we began this course, was that a much different experience than how you're feeling today?
I think so. Just as I took that deep breath of air, I was like, okay, I'm aware I'm breathing right now. Yeah, I think when we taught this course for the first time, however many semesters ago that was, it was a very different feeling because it was you and I teaching something together. It was you and I facilitating something, which was a new experience for us. We've worked together previous to this, but this was our first experience with a group of people where you and I are sharing the work and doing something collaboratively. So that felt very new to me, and I was really stressed out about that. I was really stressed out that that the flow wasn't going to be there, or we were going to mess up in some way. Well, really, that I was going to mess up in some way that was just going to knock the train off the rails in some way. That wasn't the case. It went really well, just as we expected, and it's continued to go really well. And now the nervousness that I'm feeling is just really the anticipation of meeting new people and hearing new voices and new thoughts about things. And we can't possibly anticipate what the group dynamic is going to be like with these two new groups of folks. So that's exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time.
And everybody has an opportunity to be an influence on whatever it's going to be. They just will be an influence on whatever we end up becoming together this semester. So it is exciting because we don't know what we're gonna feel like together at the end of the semester or in the middle of it, and that's exciting.
Every semester brings something new, right? Whether it's the number of students who are in the room, who's in the room, what they bring with them, like how we actually communicate and play and be curious together. Like it's always a different experience. So.
Okay, so I have two things that I really wanted to talk about today. I want to talk about and our own experience as being students coming into a new environment, a new semester, or a new course, whatever we decide to talk about. And the second part is I want to talk a little bit about our relationship and how that began. Um,
Mhm,
yeah, and then in class we'll be able to talk to students about their experience with beginnings as well.
mhm.
Ryan nods.
Yeah, it's true. It's like part of this newness with so many students. I mean, I'm gonna guess some people we might recognize because some folks who are taking the class may have already been in TPE for a semester or previous semester, and we've encountered them at some point in some way. Um, but yes, because there's so much newness to this, we are very new to a lot of people in this room as well. And the intention of us with this course and how we talk about it in the course description and the intro podcast that we recorded is that you and I are bringing a lot of our own experience and the overlays of our relationship and how we are talking about and experiencing these themes as well. So yeah, so it's like we can bring in some of the overarching ideas for these themes, today being beginnings, and then get into it more of our own particular experiences. But here we are now as professors for a college course, and that still feels new to me, even though I've been teaching now for a number of years and am quite familiar with TPE and George Brown College. There's still this exciting newness to it as well, that we're not students, but we also still can and do experience a lot of these same feelings coming into the first class as well. How do we feel prepared? What do we need? And so it's reminding me when I was a student not too long ago of my own experiences of the amount of anxiety that I would feel in the days, weeks leading up to a new course. I always wanted to be as prepared as I could possibly be, and it stressed me out.
Mm.
Like summer vacation was not an enjoyable time for me as a kid, and up into my adult years when I was in any kind of educational institution, because summer break was not a time to be excited. Summer break was a time to get prepared. And so
Mm.
I'd be a stressed out little bunny trying to figure out, like, okay, I need to know exactly where the class is. I need to know exactly where my locker is. I need to remember what my locker combination is. I need to write it down and have it in a backup spot so that I don't get stuck at my locker and be late for class. Like I could create every worst case scenario in my mind. And so I would spend a lot of time getting prepared. And that was the way that I was used to being a student of beginnings for me, was a lot of fear. It wasn't a lot of excitement. There's a lot of fear that I was going to make some kind of a mistake and I wouldn't be able to go back because of my embarrassment and shame,
Mm.
and also the worry that I wasn't meeting the expectations as a student to be welcomed back. So I hold all that in my heart as a professor in the class too, and in anticipation of students possibly arriving with some of those similar feelings. How
So I
about
have
you?
a question for you, but I don't want before we move on to me, I want to talk about what did you find supportive back then, or if you didn't have a lot of support back then for those feelings, what would you have if you could go back and support yourself right now, what would you say to yourself about that beginning?
Ryan lowers his gaze as he considers.
I could go back to any of those points of getting prepared for school, feeling so incredibly worried that there was something that I was missing. How could I support myself thinking about those situations? I guess really, like I was always a loner. I always did all these things on my own, for different reasons. So I think the support of, and this has worked for me. I did do this, and this actually resulted in a really incredible relationship in my life as a student. So the support that I can give to myself back then is actually something that I did, is to take a moment to look around, look around and see who's in the space with you. Look around and get a feel for the people, because we all get feelings off of one another.
Mhm.
Look around and see if there's somebody that you notice that might look like they're feeling a little bit stuck themselves, a little bit worried, and the support I can give myself is that if you go and say hello, it might result in an allyship or a friendship that can be incredibly supportive as students. And I did that in college, and one of my best friends, like we went through college and university together, and we were like the hugest supports for one another. And we're great friends now. Had I not done that, looked around and actually went and approached somebody and just said hello, I wouldn't have had that support.
That's great advice for young Ryan, I think, right? Is to
Yeah.
look around and find people who are going through the same thing and
Mhm.
relate to them about it, because you feel less alone. You feel like you're not a freak because other people are also experiencing something similar. And I would
Mhm.
pretty much guarantee that in any class, there's going to be at least a portion of the class that is feeling very nervous about how things are going to go
Mhm.
and how they're going to be.
And it's not an easy thing to do as well. And I don't say that with like I don't want to sound flip when I say that just look around and see if there's somebody. It's like that is a really hard thing to do, particularly when you're the type of person where it's like you're furiously making notes, you're making lists, there are all these pieces of information that you need to keep track of, and being so self-conscious and self-aware of what's going on in our bodies and our immediate surroundings, it can be very difficult. And it's happening with my camera right now, actually, which is a wonderful experience, is that there's an autofocus on my computer where it keeps getting blurry, and it's hard to see through the blur when we're feeling very anxious and nervous. And to feel like it's actually still okay to acknowledge the blur and to be able to reach out to somebody and even to say that potentially. Everything feels really blurry for me right now. Like, is feeling blurry for you too? That can be a support. But and I even want to ask you, like Pablo, like, because we've been teaching this course only in an online platform since we started it, and there's differences for us, and this is a beginning as well as to how we meet one another in a virtual platform, because it's very different from in-class experience. How do we look up and notice one another when we all have cameras on and we're all in this little square together? Like,
Ryan gestures to the square video screen.
I think it's going to take a little more time than it would in a non-virtual environment, in an actual classroom. I think when you're in a classroom, you've got so much feedback from different things, and there's all these different conversations can be happening at the same time, and it's a little more static online, and so people have to be a little more patient with one another and listen a little more intently to one another, and then maybe start making judgments, as we all do, about like, oh, that person, I might be aligned with that person, or I connect with that person about that idea, or I like the way that person said that. I think we are really going to have to slow down and use our senses to take in other people.
Mhm.
That's what I've learned about learning or teaching online, is you have to be much more intentional about hearing each other out.
right.
Yeah.
Because we're missing some of the ways that we may have become quite comfortable in noticing somebody else, right? It's like, just take a look at them over across the room. They happen to catch your eye. It's like, we get these kinds of messages back and forth, but you can't do that in an environment like this where you're doing that to everybody in the room.
Mhm.
So there's new ways too that we have in the online platform where we can connect with one another. And those are some of the things that we're thinking about. So what we're bringing into the course and what we're encouraging people to do in order to be more available to each other, so we can get those messages and can make those connections and feel some support and solidarity in the class as we talk about things that can be very personal to us and
Mhm.
have very specific impacts and feelings attached to these things for us individually. But to be able to connect and talk and share about these things can bring a lot of support into the room of not feeling quite so isolated in the beginning. Some people can't wait for the beginning. They're so excited by it. Like, some
Yeah.
people can just like burst into a room and just be like, oh, here I am. Hello, everybody. Like, and that's amazing. But there's also a lot of people where it's like, beginnings don't feel good for me. I
Mhm.
don't know how to be there in a full and present way. So how do we support folks who are like 10% there? And that's enough in that moment.
And I very much do welcome students. If you're super enthusiastic right now and nervousness is not a thing that you're experiencing, that's also fantastic. And I would like to learn more about that. Like I'm so curious about somebody who enters a room feeling just a pure excitement about a new beginning. because that's not been my experience at the beginning. My experience at the beginning has been a lot of anxiety and some fear, and yeah. So let me briefly talk about my academic experience in the beginnings, and I'm gonna think back.
Pablo gazes up,
Okay, so
then ponders.
I think supports for me have been about attitude. So going into a room, and I'm going to talk about the shifting of these types of things too, because it can shift over time for somebody. In high school, when I remember going into grade 9, thinking, and probably as a coping strategy, this is everyone's an idiot.
He smirks.
I'm not an idiot. I'll be fine. And like kind of telling myself this, that like this environment is stupid, kind of dismissing people and everything around me so that it didn't feel overwhelming. Now looking back, I can say, oh, what a coping strategy that was, and like how long it took me, how many barriers that actually put up between me and engaging with people, engaging with teachers, engaging with content. I wish I'd been more open and allowed myself to be a little more vulnerable, but maybe I just, in that moment in my life, I could not be that vulnerable to people.
Ryan nods.
So that's changed. So I don't enter that many rooms these days where I'm thinking everyone's an idiot. I'm going to be superior to these people. I don't think that anymore. It does happen from time to time when I find myself in a room full of idiots, but it doesn't. It's not my default, and it's not like what I go to now for support. Now I go into rooms with more curiosity and having some confidence in myself, knowing that I'll be able to make a connection with somebody. I'll be able to make a connection with somebody in the class or in the room.
And how do you have that knowing for yourself? Like something happened at some point. It might have been a slow, gradual process where there's a moment where it's like, oh my God, I'm doing this thing this way now. But like when you think about having entered spaces at that time of being like, doesn't really matter whether I'm here or not because this place is a joke.
Right.
To now walking into a room like eyes first and with curiosity, like how did that come to be for you?
Pablo's eyes narrow as he considers.
As a student, I guess. As we're talking about school.
Yeah, I think you and I so we talk about the level of how personal we want to get about things sometimes. So off camera, you and I. And so maybe today I'll just talk a little bit about entering TPE when I came to TPE as an intern. So I was a student at the time, and I was doing my my bachelor's in social work, and so I had my internship, and I don't know, there was something about having a role as a student in that moment where it was like, okay, well, you're not expected to know everything. That was supportive. That was made very clear to me. You're not expected to know anything actually, which was great. And that I think that allowed me to be curious. So having this, that was it. It was having support to be curious, having support that I didn't have to come in, that there was not a lot of expectations on me in the beginning, that I was going to be allowed to fumble my way through and learn some things. And so I didn't feel a lot of pressure to be great or expert at anything. And then that allowed me to then open up my curiosity to other people. And when I was able to do that, when I was able to be present enough to be curious about others, I became curious about myself. So this is a kind of a recent development for me in the past couple of years of like having enough curiosity and awareness to actually then bring that back to myself and been like, oh, what do I need? What do I want? What am I hoping for? Like, I would never have asked myself, what am I hoping for from a school semester in high school? It was just not a question that I could ever bring. Like, it wouldn't even come up because it would just be about kind of survival. But now it's about, no, I'm invested. I have value myself, and I want to engage in this so that I get something out of it. So maybe that's something that we could talk about in classes. How can we support each other to remain present, to be curious about yourself, about each other? That might be a support.
Ryan agrees.
We were both, and I'm speaking to students in the class right now who this might be their first semester and they're not aware of some of the things that we're talking about. So to give a bit of context, that internship at TPE means that, and I also did it as well, we both have this experience in TPE that each of us did a counselor internship here, where in our final semester or social work program that we were in. It's a program you and I both each did separately, but
Mhm.
that we did our placement hours with TPE, working with the faculty counselors in the program and doing counselor internships where we supported students through counseling sessions and also participated in lots of other ways within TPE. And so when I hear you say, like there weren't these expectations on me, right, that were different, feeling a different kind of expectation from you. And I'm thinking about that for myself as well, because being an intern in TPE was also a huge experience for me as well in changing some of my feelings and thought process, and also how I approach things differently now as well. Is that I also, like in school, didn't feel like I was noticed as much as I wanted to when I wanted to be noticed. And when I didn't want to be noticed, I got noticed too much. So it was constantly this feeling of like battling against the thing that I was getting. And in TPE, like I think the experience that really mattered for me was having somebody notice me, let me know that they were noticing me, and also ask me what I wanted.
Pablo nods.
So it actually gave me opportunity to feel all of that anxiety and nervousness about myself and not about an institution or this other relationship. And so a lot of the support that I felt was that approach to be told, like, I notice you and I know that you know things and I have things that can support you as well. Let's talk about it. To feel that sense of urgency be leveled out a little bit, pushed aside a little bit, and to have time at the beginning of the internship and then throughout it to have lots of time to be talking about these things. And I believe in my heart that you and I have brought a lot of that knowledge and experience of being counselor interns into how we want to like facilitate and support this class and this course that we've developed, is knowing that how much that mattered to each of us and knowing how much of a support that is, that we have a true belief that we can do that same thing and it will have a very similar impact in different ways, in our own personal ways. But I trust that to be able to say to people, I notice you and what do you want out of this, is a huge experience.
Yeah, and I think for both of us, maybe it was a new experience, and so it was very exciting. So once I got a taste of that I mattered, that other people were curious about me, it I blossomed. Like I felt like I really came out of my shell and was able to take some risks with people and take chances of taking up a little bit of space or sharing a thought or an idea with people, and not having it received as like, oh, you're just a student, or you don't know what you're talking about. Like somebody was curious enough, professionals who've been doing a job for like a long time were curious about my perspective on things, was like hugely different experience than I've ever had, maybe. And it was a very exciting time. And I think that's the spirit that we kind of created this course in, was from that beginning. Yeah, that's pretty good.
And to be hearing like consistently, and I think this is a good segue for us to actually talk about like how you and I met one another and what that meant for us. But in my internship, because we did our internships at different times, in my internship, the thing that was also incredibly supportive and also terrifying to me is to be told and that you don't have to do this alone. There's not an expectation. You're actually not allowed to do this alone. As an intern and in doing this work, you are part of a group. We are all here to support one another. And so that means that we find the ways to support one another and to ask for support and to give support. So to feel that that holding
Ryan grips his chest.
from a bunch of people, like I'm emotional, like remembering it. Is to feel that like a new sense of anxiety, a new sense of worry, where before I was so used to worrying about all of that for myself and how it was going to impact me. And now the experience was like this new anxiety of like, oh my God, like people are actually noticing me for the right reasons. And I hope I don't let them down. I hope I do this the right way. Like, am I good enough? Like, I then started to like interact with some of these things in a very different way, with the support around me to feel those things and to talk about them.
Mhm.
So to have the support to say, like, you're feeling insecure, tell us about it. What does that mean for you? What does it
Right.
feel like? And to talk about it and to get the support of like, yeah, I understand.
And it's not like
Huge.
your insecurity is making me feel weird and unsafe, and I can't even look at you, which has been my experience sometimes in previous environments. But to be like, oh, your nervousness, so it matters. It's telling us something about this space and about this room and what supports are available or not available to you. And yeah, it's I and I remember earlier I said that there was like no expectations on me. Well, that's not entirely true. The expectation was that I would arrive open to other people, and so there was support for that. So there is an expectation then, I guess, in this class too, that like you're going to arrive to support yourself, yes, but you're also arriving to support others, to listen and to hear them out, to withhold judgment and be curious. You can have your judgments, but to take a step back and even recognize, oh, I'm having this judgment. What's that about? I hope that we can create the environment, as we have in previous semesters, been pretty successful at it, create an environment where there is a safety there, that there is a care for one another.
Mhm.
And maybe that's going to be new for some people, that they've never really experienced that in class before. And also maybe some people, even if that intention is there, they might not feel it. They might not be available to it, or it wasn't available to them. But
Mhm.
we'll see. I mean, that is our challenge, is to create all of us as a class, to create an environment that is supportive to one another.
Mhm. And that you and I, and possibly, potentially, many other people in the class as well, have this knowledge and experience in understanding the support that we can offer in many of the ways that you just described as well. Like, and you and I, we can speak specifically to the classes and saying this for ourselves, like, we had these experiences. We had very strong impacts from these experiences. We know what it meant for us, and we also know what it means to be in a role now where we can be a provider of these kinds of supports as well.
Mhm.
And to,
Ryan's video freezes.
Oh, hold on one sec, Ryan. Can you repeat what you just said for about 5 seconds back?
That we bring this knowledge with us, having experienced it ourselves, and now to be able to provide these kinds of supports as the professors in the classroom and still be feeling these things. They're also still very close to our
Mhm.
hearts, and to connect to them in an emotional way as well. It's not just knowledge that's like into my head and now I'm going to impart it by word and telling you the ways this can happen. Is that you and I like feel a lot, and our embodied ways of experiencing these things is a great support we have to the classes as well.
Mm.
As I caught myself getting emotional a few moments ago and my eyes were welling up, I actually felt a moment of like, oh no, too much too soon. This is going to scare some students in the class. Like, I'm getting emotional. And that's a thing for me too. So this is about our vulnerabilities that you and I have also said that we are testing and experimenting with, and not being closed off from having these be part of the experience in the classroom as well.
Okay, Ryan. So, okay. Has it always been the case for you and I in our relationship where you felt safe enough to become emotional
Has it always been that way with you?
since day one?
No, day one was not.
Pablo smiles.
Day one was not the greatest day. I don't know how many days into it where it did feel that way.
All right, so let's
Okay.
talk. So,
Here's
okay.
the segue. Here's the
Thank you.
segue. So, in a conversation that we previously had, we talked about how we met one another, and we had some discussion about it. But as we've been talking about it more, the more you talk about something, the more things come up, and you keep reflecting back to something. And we've actually now like discovered some new things, some new beginnings in our relationship of how it began, which is quite lovely. We can keep finding new beginnings for our relationship. But you and I met for the first time in the TPE office a number of years ago. And
We had been interns. We had completed our internship separately. We didn't know each other while we were doing our internship. We had gone off and
just saying to the students right now, this is the gossip section now where you're getting to hear some like some
behind the scenes nonsense.
how Pablo and I like met each other and how things went. So this is a interesting part of our relationship. So we had done our internships at different times, and I was just completing mine, and I didn't know, you didn't know, that we had each been approached about doing a job for the summertime at TPE, and we would be working together for that time. It came together pretty quickly, at least from my position. You had already been reached out to previous to that. So unbeknownst to me, I was actually in the office finishing up my internship, and you had come in for a visit, and I had never met you before. And you were at the front desk at Christopher's desk, and you were having a conversation with Christopher. And I was at my computer doing some notes or something, and I heard a voice I hadn't heard before. And I heard you chatting with Christopher, and I was listening in a little bit. I was like, who is this person? Is this person a student? Like, are they here for some reason? And I was picking up on your energy of how you were communicating with Christopher. You were joking, you were being sarcastic, you were like doing this thing. And I was like, I just felt this like, oh, I'm very curious about this person. I remember like leaning back in my chair and rolling back and taking a peek at you from around the wall. And Christopher noticed me doing that. And he was like, hey, Ryan, do you know Pablo? You guys met before? And there was just this moment where you and I just looked at each other. And I just thought, oh shit, this guy doesn't like me.
Oh, you really thought you had that thought that I didn't like you?
So the thing that you talked about earlier about being in high school and like walking into a place and having that kind of like boastful energy, like that's how I read you in that moment. That you, what I felt coming off of you was a sense of like, I know this place, like I know this place. And I'm sitting in my chair being like, I know this place right now, but I just like, I felt this like, I can't say it was a competition. I can't say it was a confrontation. It wasn't a conflict. I just felt like you're a guy who knows some things. I'm a guy who knows some things. And I was curious about you.
Can we know things together without killing each other?
And I didn't even know at that time that we were going to be working together. This was my first experience with you. And then we found out that we'd be working together. And
I found out the day that I started working. Yeah. So I showed up to work. I thought, okay, it's just going to be me in the office, me and Christopher, and the teachers were going to be around, and I was going to be I was going to be working with the counseling interns or something like that. And then you're there, like, who's this guy? Oh yeah, this guy. And then I found out that you were working there, and I was like, oh, I wonder, is his role going to overtake mine? I was like, are we going to step on each other's toes? Like, is he already stepping on my toes? So I was like very cautious, and I think that caution and like the unknown definitely put me on edge around you. And I was thinking not generously about you. And I thought, I don't like this guy. Without any real information about you, I don't like this guy. I think that's what I was thinking in the beginning.
Yeah, I was definitely nervous around you. I've sensed that coming off of you too. And I think that made me even more nervous, seeing how you were like playing it up with Christopher that other time and being so jokey and fun. And like, that's so much of who I am. And you didn't know that about me because you didn't have any experience with me. And then to feel this, like, not necessarily frosty, but it's like you had this professional demeanor about you that made me nervous. Like, oh, like I'm a joker, I'm a funny guy. And how I communicate and connect with people isn't going to work with this guy. Like I thought for sure that you were not going to feel a sense of humor from me or with me. And so I think we both like got our guards up. And it wasn't even about what we knew about each other because we didn't know about anything about each other. It was all on assumptions and worries and insecurities, I think, at least for me. And we weren't feeling inclined to get closer. I think we were feeling more inclined to like figure out how to do our jobs side by side without conflict. And that was picked up on by a supervisor of ours who said, like, I think we need to have a conversation about like how you guys are going to be working together, which was great. Which was great because had that not been facilitated, I don't know how well things would have gone for us without that conversation.
Okay, so I want to touch on what you said. You had just said about picking up a professional attitude from you or something like that. Like again, like my supports are attitudinal, and so in high school it was to this is a joke and everything's a joke, and so it shouldn't affect me. To this is very important, and the only way I can feel safe in this environment at this point is to rely on my credentials and my professionalism. I was hired for a role, so I'm going to be that role. You know, still removing myself personally. You know, not really involving myself as a human being until I felt safer in the environment. So I relied on my role as a I was going to say a student, but as an employee now.
Mhm.
And maybe that's a little insight into like when you see professors around you or you see like staff around the school or you interact with them. Sometimes they're putting on a bit of a professional front. It's how they get through their day and that's how they conduct themselves. It's a bit of a barrier, a bit of a support.
Hmm.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think it's quite common in a professional environment to carry yourself in a kind of a different way than you actually are. Would you agree with that?
Sure. I mean, I think depending on the different contexts and stuff too, it's like we do have a role. We do have like, there are rules of professionalism stuff within the school and the ways that we, like policies and ethics, like all these things are part of it as well. And there's also the ways that we as people need to support ourselves by sometimes like, yes, putting on the professor hat and being too busy right now to chat because we need to be doing something else. Yes, that's a part of it too. For you, with
I'm
the
thinking more about feeling insecure and I think that's quite a common thing for people to bring into a room, even people in a working in a working environment, and to like rely on their roles that
Mhm.
it feels safer to be a role than it is to be a human sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to say just with different words, just saying like feeling the security in a title rather than a human being
Yeah.
with a job. And so for sure, like I think in my experience with you, it's like my way of coming at it was in the opposite direction. I think we both wanted to be in that middle place, which was the ideal place for both of us. But you were feeling the title and feeling the support in that, and I was feeling the support in it's like I'm a human being first. Like I need to be able to connect with people. If I can't connect with people, then this isn't going to go well for me. And so we had to find a way to communicate our ways to the middle place where both of us were very comfortable and could hear one another. And that conversation was facilitated for us, and it was wonderful. Like
Okay, so we had an altercation about something, but we didn't even talk about it. It was just like a weirdness about space. Like we were just in each other's space and not, and maybe we were both kind of like hanging on to something about territorial. Um, and then it was noticed by Ambrose Kirby, who was our supervisor, and he brought it to our attention. And then he wanted to facilitate a conversation, which I was very hesitant to get into because I was like, I just started this thing. I don't really want to talk about anything with this person that I don't even know. Like, why am I going to talk about my feelings with Ryan? I just met him. What do I owe him? I don't owe Ryan a damn thing, is what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of resentful towards, and this is all in the moment. This is all in like a couple of minutes. And I was resentful towards Ambrose for even putting out the idea because now I feel obligated to, he's my boss. So I have to have this conversation. Okay, fine, let's have this conversation. What was that conversation like for you?
I was super nervous because I was quite worried that us having to communicate about some kind of conflict that we were going to have was going to result in one of us not being there anymore, or this is going to be like tight and painful, and like I was so worried because I knew that we needed to be working closely and coordinating a lot of different details, and a lot of it was on the fly kind of stuff that was coming up. So we also needed to be able to problem solve, like even triage, like what was going on in the environment together, and to keep each other informed and backing each other up, and also like being available to the TPE community as well. Like that was a lot of stuff for us to be feeling. And so the idea of us having a conflict in that moment, I was already thinking about like, oh, what am I going to do after I'm done here? Because I was feeling very insecure in that you had already been there. You already had the job, and I was somehow getting in the way of that. Like, it was tense. I was very tense.
Pablo nods.
But we did it. We did it, and it was really good. It was really good to be able to talk about some things with somebody who could be calm, supportive, and aware, and was really committed to each of us and all of us to stick with it, to stick with the feelings and the conversation, and to get an idea as to what each other was thinking about and feeling.
So I remember being in one of those small offices inside the TPE office. The offices are very tiny and very tight, and to have three people in a room is like already that's
Yeah, our
heightening the
knees were
tension.
almost touching, right?
Yeah.
We were like, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember feeling such a tightness in my body from like head to toe of like just rigidness and like not wanting to bend or be bent. And so when Ambrose said, he kind of laid out the situation, he goes, okay, well, we have to have a conversation. Are you open to this? And I remember feeling and with everything in my body, no, I'm not open to this. I don't want to do this. I'm not ready. I don't feel like I can be vulnerable in this environment yet, if I ever get there. And then I remember distinctly saying, okay, I trust Ambrose. I trust the support that we have. I'm going to let my guard down. It was like almost like a conscious decision and distinct. It was a very distinct change in my feeling. And then I felt kind of a liquid loosening in my body where I could let my guard down a little bit and then talk about, okay, I am struggling connecting with Ryan. I'm having a tough time feeling that my role is being encroached upon by him. I don't want to feel that way. It's probably not the truth. Let's have a conversation about it. And it was the support of having a facilitator there who could notice these things even without us even having to say it, and was willing to sit there in the discomfort of it with us and kind of be a peace broker of some kind between the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a really open, I think it felt like to me, a very open conversation about our anxieties about working with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan nods in agreement.
Guess what? Right away after that conversation, within 5 minutes, I was feeling so much better. I was feeling so much more loose and more myself. And I could drop the role a little bit and be a human being with you.
Yeah. Even in that conversation, so much of you came forward, and that you were making some jokes. You were making some jokes to help yourself on the moment, and also they were resonating with me as well. And you were also like hearing my jokes, that they weren't zingers at you, that it was also like relieving some of the tension as well. And I think that was like the fastest fucking bridge that we
Ryan covers his mouth with his hand.
built
For all
to
adults
one
here.
another.
Yeah.
Is our sense of humor, and how we very quickly realize that we interpret the world in very obscure ways. And it's hilarious. It's hilarious in how we could communicate things to one another. And we very quickly developed a trusting bond in that job and working together. And then just kept going. And then here we had this opportunity to be able to develop a course together. And
that took a lot of trust too, is because like imagine, you're working on something so collaboratively that's going to impact people. We don't exactly match up all of our philosophies and ideas about how to teach and how to be in the world. They don't exactly align all the time, but we're committed to making it work. And so I'm more open with you than I am with most people about accepting your version of what's good or what's real or what's beautiful. With other people, I'm more rigid about that. I have very strong ideas, but I trust you, and I want you to also be fulfilled and happy, and myself as well. So like, it feels like a give and take all the time. It's like, okay, well, Ryan feels very strongly about doing something this way, and because I believe in Ryan and I trust Ryan, I want to try it his way. I want him to fail on his own, and and then we'll do it my way, or vice versa, or you'll give me the opportunity to try it my way. And if it doesn't work, I think we're both open enough to say to each other, you know what, that didn't work, and let's figure out how to do it differently.
mm-hmm. So I felt the essence of that. I just felt the essence of that. We got to a place
Ryan ponders.
through support of a conversation of identifying in ourselves and each other that we are willing to try things out, that we are not so cautious, that we're actually like investigators. We're very adventurous in spirit. And to notice that thing about ourselves and each other, and to continue building trust, because it's an ongoing thing. It doesn't just happen and then you don't have to think about it anymore. If we still have moments where we might clash over ideas or feel tired with each other at certain times, like this is part of friendship, this is part of relationship.
Part of working together. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but feeling that commitment and trust in, I know that you always want things to be better and brighter for the world. And that gives me a lot of support, knowing that I can take a chance and be adventurous. And if it doesn't turn out the way we want it to, or if it feels like a failure in some way, that it's still all right, because we tried something out and we're going to learn something from the process. We're always going to learn something from the process.
It takes a lot of trust, and that doesn't come overnight, and it comes with intention. Like, you have to intentionally be open to the possibility that you could trust somebody. If you're rigid, if I had stayed as rigid as I was day one, I wouldn't have approached you about developing something together, and we wouldn't have developed something together. And so, like, all the possibilities get shut down. All the possibilities of life get shut down if you're not open to being vulnerable a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess what I'm asking from students is to be vulnerable a little bit, as much as you are comfortable with, as much as you can. And if you find that you have a capacity one day to be a little more, great, take advantage of that. And if other days you're feeling a little tighter, honor that too, because that's an important feeling. But always be curious about it. Why am I feeling this tightness? Why am I feeling this openness? Like, it's good to ask why, and then what could support look like for me in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel this tightness, or lessen the impact of it, or support yourself to feel it without feeling judgment about it. There's so many different things to take care of when we come together in a group. Primarily yourself, like, arrive, maybe try to get sleep, grab your coffee, have something to eat in the morning. Even those little tiny things are supportive to you. If you are a little self-conscious, like, wear a nice shirt, wear your favorite shirt, comb your hair. Like, these are the things that I do. Like, I'll like,
Ryan smirks.
if nothing else is working, I like the way my hair looks. That's great. That's something I can hang on to. Or I had a great smoothie that morning, or I had a banana and that felt nice, or I'm having a cup of coffee. And then checking in, even like having our check-ins. We have check-ins before class. We get a little business done, but we also say, hey, how are you feeling? And we get a moment to ask each other, are you ready for this? What do you need right now? And we do that. I think we do that in class too, which we'll have that conversation with everybody, but
yeah,
looking for ways to support one another.
Mm-hmm. I think my takeaway from this conversation about beginnings, and the thing that I want to say to students in the class for this beginning, is that when we're feeling like this anxiety or nervousness or insecurity, we really want to hold that stuff inside. It's so scary to like let any of these things out. And the support that Pablo and I offer is that we always want to acknowledge that how we're feeling is important in the moment. And to be able to acknowledge that, first to identify it for ourselves, but to be able to acknowledge it in others, even if it's in a gentle, nondescript, nonchalant, out of the corner of your eye way. Like, communicating something can be so much better than not communicating anything at all and isolating yourself. And so when we talk about these ideas of, I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm feeling like I'm not sure how to arrive, like, saying that can be so supportive to somebody else in the room, and also supportive to you, because it opens that little door for somebody to be able to respond to you and say, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not the only one. Like, I was feeling that myself, and I wouldn't know that at all by like any of these ways that we can get communication back and forth, which can alleviate some of that pressure that we put on ourselves, and um, break up some of that surface tension of isolation, of trying to do it alone and find perfection, which is a hopeless cause in my mind and heart now.
I have very few like rigid rules that I follow in my life. But one of them is just something that I've learned along the way recently in the past couple of years is that when I take a chance to open up a little bit, it opens up an opportunity for other people to also then take a chance. And so being in a classroom environment, there's so many opportunities to offer my honest truth in that moment of like, oh, I'm not having a good day today. I had an argument with somebody that I really cared about, a friend or whatever, and now I'm bringing that energy into this room. And to be able to acknowledge that with people, get the support from them to say, oh, that's okay that you're here today, even though you're not feeling great. You might be a little subdued, but we're happy that you're here. Like to get that feeling from people is so supportive. And then that also opens up an opportunity to say, oh, I'm feeling that way too, or I recognize that in myself, or I've been there. And people can then talk about their experience. So openness breeds openness. That's like something that I've learned in the past couple of years.
Later,
I think a really important thing to say at this moment in this beginning is that this course is about connection. And if you as a student in this class are feeling that it's not what you're hoping for, is that sharing something about myself or being available to respond to somebody else's sharing of their selves, if this feels like it's not what you're looking for, like to trust your gut and to check in with Pablo and I about it. Because if openness is not something that's feeling right for you right now, this is not going to be an easy course, or it most likely won't work out. Is that we have an expectation that people are here because they're actually wanting to communicate about these things and connect with one another about these ideas.
So you might have this thought, somebody might be having this thought right now of like, yeah, I don't really feel like being open. And if that's a very strong thing that you're sticking to, then that it probably is not going to work out. But if you're thinking, I'm hesitant to be open, or I'm a little bit afraid to be open, I'm not sure if I should be or could be, then stick around and experiment and try it on and see how it gets received. And if it feels good, then maybe it's something that you could expand on and continue doing. And if it really doesn't feel good and it's not a good time for you, there's lots of support for you to not take this course, to take something else, and to come back when you're feeling like I'm ready to engage, or I'm now open to this, or I'm feeling pretty good about myself in this moment, or I have something to say or share. Then come back into another semester, and we'll try it again.
Ryan nods as Pablo ponders.
Yeah, the first couple of weeks are really fraught, right? Like people are trying to find their footing, and we get that, and we're open to hearing about that and supporting you. And if you want to get some support from us, we're definitely available to talk to about all of the feelings that might be coming up about being a student in this class.
Yeah.
Later,
and I also want to say, and we're going to reiterate this throughout the course, so we do every semester, is like when we talk about openness, we're not talking about divulging every secret that you've ever had, or like your deepest, darkest thoughts. That's not what we're talking about at all. We're talking about the openness to be curious about others and about yourself, and to give as much as feels comfortable, safe, good, fulfilling, and nothing more.
Yeah, we all want to maintain our private lives. This isn't about us peeking into each other's private lives. It's about us sharing what feels like enough of an offering or vulnerability that I can see that this can help in some way for me to get further on some path I might be on, or
yeah, whatever you identify as what's next for you, or what you are interested in, or what's on your mind, and it's something that you're willing to share. That's perfect. That's what we want to engage with. It was a good conversation, Ryan. It was good to talk to you.
Yeah, you too, Pablo. See you for the next one.
Maybe.
Pablo smirks and Ryan chuckles. Title: Phenomenal Psychology. Caption: Thank you for watching. Fade to black.